Welcome back. It's time to focus on Datapoint, and this week we are focusing on the Economic Survey 2026 that gives us details about the employment statistics. For instance, you're talking about how many people are employed in Kenya. It is now standing at 21.6 million, which is a rise. The formal sector is accounting for 3.5 million people, which is 16.2%, and the informal sector has 18.1 million, equivalent to 83.8%. You'll be breaking that down to understand what exactly is formal, informal, and the specific numbers. But the jobs that were created by the economy last year is up to 822,100, and the formal sector was getting 12.8%, but the informal sector gets the huge chunk of this at 87.2%, and that has implications in as far as how running of the economy is concerned. Now, the next one will show you that there is also a further categorization in the formal sector. There are wage employees, and then there are self-employed or unpaid family workers, but they work in a formal setup. So the wage employees, we are talking about 3.3 million, and the self-employed are 179,600, giving the total of 3.5 million of people that are engaged in the formal sector. The next slide will show you a further categorization of those wage employees. Remember, the total is 3.3. So the regular employees, these are people that receive a salary on a regular basis. It is 2.7 million. Then the casual workers is 582,900, and that gives the total of 3.3 million. So that has an implication even on taxation, contribution, statutory deductions, and contributions on what is required of them. The next slide will show you a breakdown of the informal sector. Remember the total of 18.1 million. So this is how it's broken down. So the wholesale and retail trade, as well as hotels and restaurants, we are talking about a figure of 10.7 million workers. So you can see that is significant because it is actually more than 50% of the employment sector, even though it is informal. The manufacturing sector is controlling 3.6 million workers, again, informally engaged. The community, social and personal services, these would include the personal care services like barber shops, salons, and what you may. It is 1.9 million Kenyans involved in that. For the transport and communications, we are talking about 510,900 still in the informal sector. Then the construction sector is contributing 490,100, and other categories or other workers account for 823,000. That's how the informal sector looks like. Let's now look at the key sectors in the private sector, and you'll see that, remember, the private sector with the number of jobs that are formal, we're talking about manufacturing sector controlling up to 366,000. And that accounts for 16% of the employment. Agriculture sector is controlling 311,900, which is 13.8% of the total numbers in employment. The wholesale, retail and garages, where you have repairs of motor vehicles and cars and vehicles as well, 281,000, which is accounting for 12.5% still in the private sector. For education sector, we are talking about 251,000, which is 11% of the total employment. And then for construction sector, it is 228,200, which is 10%. Now, it's important to note that according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, the employment, the private employment in urban centers, we are talking about 7.1 million. In the rural areas, we're talking about 10.9. So you'll find that that's how the numbers are. The next one, we'll look at the public sector and how the numbers are looking. So education sector controls the highest number at 480,000, which is 44.8%. Public administration and defense is 35%. So you can see those two sectors control a combined total of 79%, almost 80%, because it is 375,000 for public administration and defense. Agriculture controls 42,000, which is 4%. Manufacturing at 22,000, 2%. Transportation and storage is 2.2% at 23,900. That's how the public sector looks like. But let's focus on the more important question about best paying sectors in the private sector. Electricity, gas and steam and air conditioning services will pay you the best on average, which is 2.6 million per year. This converts to 218,000 shillings per month. But just important to know, this is an average. It doesn't mean that everyone is earning this amount. There are some that earn more than this, others that earn less than this, but on average, it gets to that, and it's the highest average across the different sectors. For the financial and insurance sectors, we are talking about 2.61 million as the annual average pay, converting to, again, slightly over 218,000. For professional, scientific and technical services, the annual average wage per earner or per employee is 2 million, converting to 166,756. For administration and support services, an average of 1.99 million per year, which converts to 165,000 per month. But how does it look like on the other end? These are the least paying sectors in the private world. Water and sewerage services will get you an average of 361,000 per year. This converts to 30,092 shillings every month. For real estate activities, you get 373,000 on average, and that monthly converts to 31,106. For agriculture sector, 434,637 per year. On average, it's just over 36,000 shillings. For accommodation and food activities, you're getting 498,000 on average per year, and that is 41,000 every month. Again, this is an average. There are people who will earn more than this, others that will earn way lower than this, depending on their contracts in as far as that is concerned. So those are just some of the numbers and how they are looking. Remember earlier on I told you that the total wages were more than 3 trillion shillings in terms of Kenyans that worked last year, and the returns they got out of that, more than 3 trillion shillings, which is a slight growth, but of course continues to tell us more about the state of the economy. That's Data Point for this week.